Today is Monday, July 22nd, and this is Spring Office Hours, Season 3, Episode 26, Pro Spring Boot 3. My name is Dan Vega, Spring Developer Advocate at Broadcom, joined by my good friend and colleague, DaShaun. Sean, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing wonderful. It's Monday. That means I have the whole week to get all of the stuff that's on my list done. I have tons of time to get it all done. Happy Monday. It's a great time to be a Spring developer, and I'm jazzed to be here.
It is. We have a really special episode today. We have a guest with us to talk about his new book, Pro Spring Boot 3. So I'm excited about that. We'll get into that in just a second. But DaShaun, what have you been up to? We missed the episode last week. We were busy last week, had some things going on. So I haven't talked to you in a couple weeks. I mean, I've talked to you, but not face-to-face like this.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I've been working on. There's this project called Spring AI. You might have heard of it.
I have.
It's a pretty cool tool, and I'm trying to put it into everybody's tool belt. Anybody that I talk to that'll listen, I want them to know about Spring AI. That's what I've been doing a lot of, and there's one project in particular that seems to at least make people smile. It's the project where I put a little Raspberry Pi camera in my kid's room, and I use Spring AI and about 50 lines of code to say, is my kid's room clean?
Nice.
And I ask Lava on Olama running on a Raspberry Pi. So it's all running on Raspberry Pis, and it's all done with just a handful of code. And I've done this project before a few years ago. It was much more involved, right? Hot dog or not hot? Is it clean or is it not? But now with all of the LLMs that are available, easily accessible with Spring AI, that's where I've been spending a lot of my time the past couple weeks.
Nice. Yeah, I was doing something similar last week. We talked a lot, actually, like through work channels, through text message. I was doing the same thing. I had a 2-hour workshop last week on Spring AI. I had a 1-hour plus presentation to the Pittsburgh Java user group on that, which turned out really well. So, yeah, I'm doing the same thing. Anybody that wants to hear me talk about Spring AI, bring it, because I'm ready for it.
I really, really, really want to say thank you again for the workshop repository that you have on GitHub.
Nice.
Because of the way it's laid out, I was able to kind of like jump. I was doing kind of the demo at the end, right? Steve did a great presentation, and I was just kind of like, oh yeah, let's take a look. And the way that it was laid out allowed me to kind of jump back and forth, and I put little README markdown files that allowed me to just execute this one. Yeah. So I had the little like test HTTP or HTTP request in there. And yeah, there's a PR incoming. But yeah,
nice.
Thank you again.
Well, and another thing you can do, I don't do it because so again, it's like throwing too many things at people. So if you wanted to, IntelliJ has the HTTP client built in. So if you put like execute.http, you can put all of those in there and run them right from the IDE. The only reason I don't do that, again, it's something else on top of like something I'm already teaching. So I don't like to introduce like those kind of things. And not everybody's running like IntelliJ's Ultimate Edition. So that's why I end up using like HTTP IE, because it's curl for people like you and me who can actually read code and not some gibberish on the command line, right? So yeah, fun. So we have a bunch of people here in the chat. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. Again, we run a live stream. I was talking to people in my presentations last week about this. We run this live stream every Monday, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central. If you're here in the chat, this is your chance to kind of ask your questions. If you have questions about anything related to Spring, especially today with our guest, anything related to Spring Boot 3, but he's written a lot of other books too, so I'm sure he can answer questions on other things. Then this is your opportunity to go ahead and ask those questions. It's our job to help you get caught up on all things Spring, what's going on in the Spring ecosystem, and we will go ahead and turn this into a podcast so you can get this episode tomorrow morning, wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to listen to it again, take us in the car on the way to work, take us on a run with you through the neighborhood. That'd be awesome. I do ask one favor. If you are enjoying this show, do us a favor and leave us a review on the podcast, wherever you're listening to it. That really helps us get this in front of more people. So that's my spiel for the day, DaShaun.
And if you come to my house for dinner and you leave hungry, that's your fault. If you're here live, ask your questions. If you don't ask the question and you leave without asking the question, that's your fault. Don't leave hungry.
All right, I'm going to do one more thing, and then we'll bring our good friend on here. This is Spring 1 is coming to you.
It's right around the corner.
Spring1.io. I was just looking the other day. I was like, holy gee, it's almost like a month away now. It is a month away now, which is crazy. Like, you think end of August is a month away, which means, oh my gosh, I'm starting to get sad. Like, training camp, like football training camp has been starting this week. As soon as that happens, I'm like, oh man, we're getting towards the end of summer. So, but we're still in July, so we're still okay. But August is coming quickly. Spring 1 is coming to you. You can sign up for the live stream. You can do that for free right here at spring1.io. DaShaun and I will be in Vegas doing some presentations that will end up on the live stream. So we're excited about that. All right, with that, let me stop yapping and bring on our good friend, Felipe Gutierrez. Felipe, how are you doing, friend?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Doing great.
Better now that you're here.
Exactly. So, hey. Felipe, for those out there in the world, that's probably just a handful of people who don't know who Felipe is. But for those people who don't know who you are, can you just tell us a little bit about us and what we're going to talk to you about today?
All right. So, yeah, I'm Felipe Gutierrez. I'm a book author with A Press. I've been working also with these amazing gentlemen over here with Dan and Sean over the past years, of course, bringing Spring to all the people, right? And when I was with VMware a long time ago, about 2013, I started with some of my books, the first book, I think, on the Spring framework. But then with the release in 2014 of a Spring Boot, I was able, to be the first one to actually test it. And with some amazing clients that allows to actually do these kind of things, that give me like the peace of mind on saying, hey, it will be cool to have already a course on Spring Boot. So I created also the Spring Boot course that we have on VMware and Broadcom. And, it's, at that time I was going to every single country and flying all over US to teach a Spring Boot. So yes, I was a technical instructor at some point, and then right now doing a lot of consulting, especially now dedicated to RabbitMQ. I also
Nice.
part of the subject matter expert on that, because I was the only one at that time also on VMware, and I'm pivotal, right, to actually teach RabbitMQ, Spring Boot, and all the Cloud Foundry stuff. So yeah, I mean, I've been doing practically everything from consulting, teaching, authoring these books, doing courses, of course, creating courses, and of course, my course in, with Josh in Spring Security on
Yep.
Spring Academy. So I was showing, hey, I still have
Oh
my
yeah.
screenshot, right? So yeah, that's a very cool place, and that's what I've been doing so far.
Awesome. Yeah, Felipe, if you don't know, Felipe's put a lot of work into Spring Academy, which is now completely free for everyone. So if you're over there, give him some nice comments on that, because he's done a lot of work over there, and I'm a big fan of Spring Academy, obviously. Yeah, we got some comments coming in here. Nice to see Felipe here. I learned quite a bit from his Spring Boot messaging book. I wish his new book, Pro Spring Boot 3, a huge success, from our friend Siva. Thank you. That's awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you, thank you.
So I knew you had more than one book. I didn't realize you had, what is that, 7 books.
7 books, yes.
So what got you into like writing a book? And then, most people write a book and then come back and go, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm never doing that again. And you did it 7 times. So how did you get into it, and what kept you going after all these books?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we have you guys to spread the word, right? We have the Spring Developer Advocates, and I think you are doing a very fantastic job on that. And I wanted to practically have also something written, right? And something that also spread the word around everything. And thanks to you guys, thanks to your workshops, thanks to your commitment to the community, to do your PRs on the tickets on Spring and everything, thanks to you guys, practically I was able to abstract some of those contents and practically put it into the book, right? Try to explain, try to put my hat of a student, right? And say, hey, I want to learn Spring. How can I do that? How can I start going from scratch and start developing like a pro, right? So that's kind of my motivation on this. And yeah, I started in 2014 with Spring Framework. Then with the release on the Spring Boot, I was able to write Pro Spring Boot. That was a huge success. It's a bestseller book because it was written or translated into Russian and into Korean. So I was so happy, right? So I had my copies and everything on that, and that give me even more the idea, the feedback that I received from the readers saying like, hey, I love the way that you explain. And normally it's like part of the code. I show you the code and then I go step by step what I'm doing on that. So I think that approach helped a lot of people doing this. And for my surprise, if you go, for example, a Springer or a Press, and you look about my books, like for example, Spring Boot messaging, then you're gonna see a lot of theses and a lot of PhD guys that are actually doing a reference on my books. So that's awesome to see. Like, hey, they are using the technology to create new stuff using Spring, right? So that's something amazing. And something that I've seen. And I even right now, Dan and DaShaun, I think I want to ask you, like in your next workshops and everything, maybe we can add even some messaging stuff, right? I've seen like we don't have too much on that, and I can help because I love messaging. And let me tell you this curious note or kind of a memory that I have with my mom, right? So my mom asked me one day, "Hey, Felipe, I know that you study computer engineer and you're doing a lot of programming, but I don't know what you're doing." I
I've
was
had that
doing a
conversation.
lot of RabbitMQ, and I say, I love messaging, mom. This is my career, messaging. So she responded back to me, "Are you a mailman?" Was so funny. And I say, "Oh no." So I tried to explain and everything and all that kind of stuff. But then, yeah, that helped me to even understand. Yeah, we need to do more messaging. We need to do a lot of stuff. And another curious thing, when I was writing Spring Cloud Data Flow, let me tell you that first, and you already aware, we had this technology named Spring XD.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So Spring XD was with all these components and everything. And then my editor was saying, "Hey, can you write this book? Because nobody else is doing." "Yes, let's do it." And I started writing. I spent a lot of nights, a lot of, sometimes it's like your how you say, like, instead of probably to spend more time with your family, you dedicate more time on the book.
Yeah.
Sometimes that was like a heavy stuff there.
Yeah.
Then I started writing all the Spring XD part, and suddenly I remember Mark Pollack saying in one of the mails, "Well, we are not going to do a Spring XD anymore. We are changing to Spring Cloud Data Flow." I was almost about to finish the book. So I was so like, no, what I'm going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do next. So, talking with my editor, say, we need to change this. I need to rewrite most of the chapters because it's an entirely new way to see, a part of messaging, part of
Mhm.
integration. And yeah, I mean, they allow me to do that because we almost finished on that book. So practically I still have my pages there. But yeah, I was able to rewrite the whole thing on a Spring Cloud Data
Wow.
Flow, and that led me to actually start teaching a Spring Cloud Data Flow to different clients when I was there with VMware and Pivotal at some point, right? So that give me, yeah, this is the context that we're going to use. This is how we're going to use it. And man, I love that technology, right? So yeah, that's some of the funny things that happened to me writing these books. And right now I'm on the seventh book, or in this case the third edition for the Pro Spring Boot 3, where I'm adding everything, right? Most
Yeah.
in test containers. I'm doing even a Spring AI. I'm doing GraphQL. And thanks to
Yes.
you guys, thanks to you, because I watch your workshops, I watch your videos. Thanks to that, I was able to compose and create everything necessary for this. So it's amazing. I mean, practically, thank you guys for doing all this, right?
No
That's the
problem.
least that we can
That
do.
yeah, that's so cool. Okay, I wanna share that now since we're talking about it. The current book, which is Pro Spring Boot 3. We have a link. We'll get that in the chat here in a second. But I know you have a promo code, so if they want to get this book, they can take a little money off of that and get it a little bit cheaper, even though it's worth every single penny.
Yes. Do you have it? Let me see.
I do. Let me, if DaShaun, if you could throw the link for this in there, because I can't grab
All right.
that from my other screen. Um, I think I can go over here. Yeah. So the 20% discount code is Java Mastery, all one
Yes.
word, all uppercase. If you use that at checkout, you can get 20% off of this.
Yeah, that
So,
that that code actually works not only for this book, but
oh,
every
great.
every Java related book is going to be with 20% discount. And the good thing is, I talked to my friends on a press, and they are going to keep this book all year long until next year. So
Nice.
practically, it's a good discount there, so you can grab your copy.
So there was Pro Spring Boot, there was Pro Spring Boot 2, Pro Spring Boot 3. This is kind of the updated version of this. What even going into that first pro Spring Boot book, what was the idea behind writing these books? It's really hard because I know with something like Spring, there's just so much, there's so many things you could talk about, so many directions you can go. And, one of the questions we get a lot is like, I want to learn Spring. How do I do it? I mean, it's just an overloaded question because there's so many different directions you can go, right? What's kind of the thought process behind this book? Who is this book for? What are they going to learn if they kind of dive into it?
Yeah, something that I was kind of the main idea here, or at least my thought process is that I need to create first a viable example, not an easy one, not the hello world, because everybody knows the hello world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that has to be applicable to the entire book. So practically, yes, I need to find the right example even before I write the book, because I can create a whole application, I can have the whole solution, and based on that, then I can block like a code blocks, right? Like a Lego thing, right? So you can actually put apart and break down and start with something simple like hey, let's create just a startup where you are accessing the database just in memory. Let's start adding maybe a database JDBC. From the JDBC, you pass to the JPA. From JPA, now you go to the JDBC client, the new stuff. And that's kind of the way that normally I do. Again, first start with a complete example. And probably you're going to recognize this example. I was trying to look for something useful. And in this case, I don't know if you remember that we had this tool for the retro. Do you remember that? The retro with all these, the smiley face, the face, and the sad face.
Yes,
I don't
I
know.
remember that
I
tool.
don't remember the name
I don't remember it either, but I know exactly
retro
which one you're
tool.
talking about.
Yeah, but actually, I got help from a designer, from a graphic designer, and she was able to help me out. And I show her like, hey, this is what we used to do, some retro. Can you help me to actually kind of do the same look and feel, and just help me out with with this part of the graphics. So based on that, and I started just with regular jQuery, nothing fancy, nothing about Vue.js or reactive. I was going for the easiest stuff, so it's going to be quicker, faster to actually write it, right? So that was my main point. Once I had the whole thing, then start breaking apart. I'm going to do the easy stuff, the kind of in the middle, and then the advanced. And of course, the book right now is in three parts. The first one is, or actually two. The first one is just the easy to understand, like very quickly. And some approach that I'm using is like we need to start from scratch, right? And I know there are going to be some advanced developers, and they can say, and I'm going to start writing again or go to the start.spring.io, right? So I can copy the code and everything, and I put those things, right? Yeah, if you're an experienced developer, just go ahead. We're going to use this code. But if you are not, if you want to start from scratch, you need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Why I'm doing that? Because I want to create a muscle memory,
Yep.
for the people who is writing. So the next chapter is going to be the same. So they already know that they need to go to the start.spring.io. They can actually select all the modules that we are going to use, and then they have everything there. So that's kind of my thinking, my idea of creating this. And of course, for every chapter, I try to put like at the outcomes. What I
Nice.
want from the reader to
I love
actually,
that.
because you can go too deep, or you can go
Mm-hmm.
like at a hello world, and that
Yep.
doesn't work, right? So you need to have a balance between
Yes.
the advanced and the beginner, right? So something that they can understand quickly and with ease, and of course create these amazing applications with the technology.
That's awesome. I love the idea of like an outcome because, as you said, you could probably write a 10,000 page book on Spring if you wanted to. But if you have an outcome like this is what you are going to get out of this particular chapter, then the reader already knows. Okay, this is for me, or maybe like you said, I'm advanced. I'm going to jump to the next chapter.
I like the part where you said, "Hey, I came up with this is the use case, the example that I'm going to use the entire way through. I know from what we do typically, having a baseline, something that you're speaking to, a reference point, whatever it is, makes that conversation easier. Like today, we're at this kind of company. We're going to talk about this kind of use case, and we use that as the example. So yeah, that's valuable.
And I know that you guys do the same thing because when you're doing the workshop, you prepare, you create a whole application, and then you can explain. So practically, we have the same articulation, I can say, or the same idea. But here, it's going to be for everybody. Probably when you're doing into the workshop, you have a very advanced people, and myself as an instructor happens to be that one day I was teaching and a group of people that they were coming from the .NET environment or .NET kind of an ecosystem into Java. So they talk about Spring Boot was totally different from other guys where we already know Java, we already know this. Let me tell you, there is I'm not going to say the company, but there's a company in Europe that we flew there, another a colleague and myself to, I think was Budapest or Bucharest. I don't remember, one of those places. And then they just got the course on Spring Cloud. So I was going to start teaching Spring Cloud, and suddenly I say, guys, this is in order to get into Spring Cloud, you need to know about a Spring Boot. So which one knows a Spring Boot? And the 16 people raised their hand. But the thing is, when I saw the hands and I saw the faces, I said, what? Hey, you're just kids. How old are you? Yeah, 23, 24. So are you a college graduate? Yeah, we just graduated from college. And do you already know Spring Boot? So they told me, well, everybody here is a Spring Core engineer certified. My surprise, what?
Wow.
And they actually told me, well, here in our universities, in order to actually get your diploma or your degree, you need to certify in one of your most interest technology. So at least that group, the 17 kids, they were actually showing emphasis and care for Spring. So all of them, they were Spring Core engineers. So I was like, so I don't know what I'm gonna teach now. Of course, I went into I just switched the whole thing because it was like a medium, lower medium, because it was a new technology. So I went into the hard stuff, right? Creating already their own cloud starters, very similar on the Spring Cloud config or the Spring Cloud Kubernetes. Those kind of things we were getting to the whole thing. So we changed the whole topic, and practically I ended doing consulting instead of teaching them, but just to their whatever they were doing at that time, right? So those are the things that going back into the discussion of what do you need to know in order to teach this, or what is going to be your audience. That's kind of the key thing to know first. And for example, for a book, I cannot do for beginners. That will be probably a different title. But in this case, it will be like an intermediate advanced, right? So that's how.
All right, I wanna talk Spring Boot 3, and I'm just bringing a graphic up on the screen so everybody kind of gets a lay of the land. But Spring Boot 3 covers a lot now because Spring Boot 3.0 came out almost 2 years ago now. So we're 2 years, November of 2022. Spring Boot 3.1 added some more features. Spring Boot 3.2, Spring Boot 3.3 just came out in May of this year. So there is a lot of features across Spring Boot 3, and I want to get your take on it. What are one or two of your favorite features in Spring Boot 3.x that maybe you included in the book because you're really excited about?
Test containers.
Nice.
I love test containers. Man, this is one of the main features that I love a lot. How you guys simplify the way that we can test. Because if you go with regular Java, it's a lot of stuff that we need to put. With just one single line or one annotation is more than enough to actually create your test container. It's so amazing. So I put the test containers on the book. Another addition that I did was when I heard for the first time Olga to know about the new request implementation or request interfaces. That's another thing that, hey, we're replacing this part of the Spring Cloud or the Spring Netflix. Now you can do this with this new technology. So I was amazed on that. So that is coming on the book, right?
Awesome.
For example, Oliver, he created the Spring Modulith. I did a talk with Glenn Renfro. So cheers to Glenn Renfro.
I was in that room. I remember that talk. Yes.
Yeah, my friend, and we were in Atlanta doing the DevNexus, and I was doing the kind of a comparison between microservices and how we are able to create microservices using Spring Cloud Stream, right? Without worrying you about a Spring Boot or either is going to be any broker, Kafka or whatever. You all have your just one base code. You don't need to learn any of these technologies. Practically let the Spring Cloud Stream do its job on whatever binder you want to choose in order to communicate between microservices. So that was kind of the talk. And then Glenn started talking about Spring Modulith. How can you actually, it's not like a going back, but instead of using microservices, what about if you create a Spring application that allows you to do all the modules? So practically that introduction to Spring Modulith is coming in that book. It's kind of a preview on that technology. The same as Spring AI, right? So I was amazed when they announced the Spring AI. So I put that as well. And another thing, all the support for GraphQL.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, it's thanks to you guys that, I was able to say, I don't want to let GraphQL, because that's something that I was asked before on Pro Spring Boot 2. Hey, you don't have anything on GraphQL. Are you going to put that at some point? And I say, yes, we need to add it. So that was the key, right? So, yeah, I mean, how can I say, believe me, as you said in the beginning, we can write a almost 2,000 book of every single technology, right?
Yeah.
And even so, this is the page that comes with a lot of pages. It's around 900 pages.
Wow.
Like
big book.
And I already got my
That's got some meat to it. Like, the picture doesn't do it justice. Turn it on its side. Let's see. Like, that's a no joke. That is a serious, thick book.
So, I mean, you can learn a Spring and at some point you see a flight. Yeah.
You could do some weightlifting in the office.
Of course, yes. I need to do some workout. Yeah.
Love it. Cool. All right. So, hey, if you're here in the chat with us and you have questions, please do us a favor. We have the great Felipe with us. We'll all try and answer some questions. So if you have questions on anything Spring or being a pro Spring Boot 3 developer, get those in. I think you have a couple starred, DaShaun. Do you want to see if we can
let's
answer
start
a couple of them?
Okay. Well, what's the impact of Java 21 on Spring Boot? I mean, specifically with virtual threads. I'm sure that that's covered in the book. Felipe, why don't you give us your thoughts on Java 21 and virtual threads?
I cover that practically briefly on the book, and that's because based on the base Java that I used was just Java 17.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there is just an appendix on how to use all the virtual threads that, again, Spring Boot makes so easy to use, right? Nothing compared. I think I haven't seen any other technology that allows you to do that, right? So it's there, it's on the book. And of course, it's based on the examples that I put there, and you're going to see that, right? So I don't know if what else we can say on that.
It's easy to do, right? Switch, change property, go. It will have an impact. We've seen there's tons of work and blog posts and analytics on with virtual threads and without. Take a look, absolutely, and it is fully enabled and compatible with Spring Boot. So take it for a spin.
And actually, let me quickly say that one of the appendix is also like the Spring Boot migrator, and that was thanks to what DaShaun did in one of their workshops, right? Like, and actually, I don't know if you remember, I helped you to pass your workshop into Spring Academy. So part of that is actually in the book. So thank you, DaShaun.
Fantastic, right? That's a thread all by itself. That's one that I'm happy about, is the upgrading and all the ways that you can now not just deliver Spring Boot 3, but also like keep it updated as you go forward, extending that return on the investment that you make, making it more valuable over a longer time frame. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited that there is a section dedicated to that in the book. That's amazing.
Yeah. Zanka, I'll just throw my 2 cents in on this. I think we've talked about this on the show before, but if you're new to the show, I'll kind of elaborate on it a little bit. I think JDK 21 has been one of the most important releases in the JDK conversation, because up until that, a lot of the conversation was concurrency in Java is not what it is in other languages. There are other choices, other languages you could reach for if you're doing kind of high throughput blocking concurrency, right? So JDK 21 comes around, and it didn't just come around. I mean, this was something they've been working on for years. And with this, we now have an answer to, I'm writing a traditional Spring MVC app that is talking to a database, that is talking to another service, which for me was a lot of the services I'm writing, right? Like those are some pretty common things that we're doing. And in those scenarios where we can get some extra performance out of it just by turning on a switch, just by setting a property equal to true, we get a lot of performance benefits out of that, and something that we'd reach for something else as far as scalability goes. We would throw more hardware at it. We would turn to something like reactive programming just as a scalability mechanism. I think it's been really important. So yes, it has a huge impact on Spring Boot and beyond, right? Like we talk about like even AI applications. Every time we're doing an AI demo, it's like, we're in JDK 22 right now. Oh, by the way, if you're going to take requests in, let's turn virtual threads on, because why not? Like we are talking to an LLM, that's a blocking request, right? Let's turn on virtual threads for that. So yes, I think it's across the board in those types of applications. It's very important.
Here is because of what you just said, here's a good follow on. And it's just simply, it says Spring IoT. I believe that's what it says. And this is another topic that's important and close to me, is like, where can we run these Spring workloads? And because of Java 21 and all of its amazing value in a Spring Boot application, those Spring Boot applications specifically that we're running on the edge, those Internet of Things devices, all of the examples, now even those things, and the impact on something like virtual threads, or because of virtual threads, on a device that fits in the size of your hand, the impact, the performance improvement, the benefits are a lot bigger on a smaller workload. You're going to see a much bigger impact on those IoT types of use cases. So yeah, Spring IoT was the statement, but I think that was the question. Can we do it? Yes. The answer is absolutely yes. And if you've watched the show, and we've had lots of our other JVM community friends on, and how fast the Java ecosystem is moving because of the improvements in the JVM. Yes, we're finding Java in more and more workplaces or use cases, more places. And there was a recent Fuji episode around these embedded workloads that relates really closely with the IoT workloads. So yes, great question. And the answer is yes. And if you'd like more on that, yeah, give us a call. You know how to get a hold of us.
Yeah, let me tell you that I did a lot of testing on the new AOT, right? All the ahead of time on the creating natively stuff.
Yes.
And the remarks are, exceptional. It's just like, it's amazing. Actually, I was able to I have my own Raspberry Pi cluster, and I was able to do this, and because I wanted to see, hey, I know that the Java is heavy at some point. Now let's start doing native. Now let's start doing these new Java virtual machines. It's so fast, very fast. I'm practically, doing now with, of course, I'm using a lot of RabbitMQ and my IoT stuff with my Raspberry Pis. Is so fast with all the Q streams that RabbitMQ provides, right? So it's amazing. Yes, this is one of the technologies that we need to watch. And practically, guys, you have this gentleman over here that can help you to actually understand all this technology. And I'm so glad to be here, and of course share all this knowledge and everything that you need, right? So that's amazing. Again, yes, you can do a lot of Spring IoT with AOT. So it's a lot of very cool stuff.
There's a question here about explaining native images, and I think we just kind of touched on that. What the native image or feature allows us to take only the bits that we need from the code that we're delivering, only the part of the JVM that we need, only the amount of garbage collection that we need, and it's an ahead of time compilation, a build time procedure that delivers native code for whatever architecture and operating system we're delivering to. So Raspberry Pi on Linux, we can optimize a JVM or a Spring Boot workload to run on a 512 megabyte Raspberry Pi 02. This is what we're doing. The follow-up, the question is, does this support Mockito test? Here's the cool thing is you don't need the native image to support Mockito test. You can do it a couple of different ways, but your inner loop development, use Mockito tests. Test it just like you normally would. Don't worry about the native image. And in fact, don't build the native image until you're ready to release. But my experience, my favorite pattern for testing native images is to use Rest Assured, because with test containers that we talked about before, I can have my integration tests not only build my native image, but I can also have that integration test run my Rest Assured tests against that native image just like I would against my JVM. So I can have that same abstract set of tests that I run against my JVM and my native image. And as a part of my integration tests, I can use Rest Assured. Rest Assured, the API that's there allows me to do that really easily with native image tests. I've not tried it with Mockito tests, but there's also a test harness for native image tests. If you want to run tests against your native images, you can.
Cool. Great answer. Any other questions here?
Yeah, I think I saw somebody ask if there's going to be a translation into Korean early. Yeah. This depends on the publisher. So if this is a success, and then they can send it to other countries, and they asked about it, and they let me know in the next couple of months, saying like, hey, we have a very good audience, so we're gonna do translation, and this is how it goes, right? So that's normally again, it depends on the publisher. and the public around the countries that they need to have that book.
Cool. I see. Yes, that was another question. Is there full feature parity for libraries and frameworks for running native versus on a JVM?
No, because not every library that you're using has been pulled up. We can use libraries that were compiled against Java 8. We can use that in the JVM just fine. But we can't do that. We can't compile to native things that aren't ready. The JVM, it can do things like reflection. And part of having a native image is you have to give the ahead of time processing, you have to give it hints. It has to know where to look. Where is that code? Where does it live? Because if it's not there, GraalVM can't do that today. So those hints are not available. They haven't been provided for all of the third-party libraries that you might be working with.
But for the most part, the things that we're working with in the Spring ecosystem, Spring Framework, Spring Boot, all the Spring projects, those have all been, the hints have been made available for those.
Yep.
And the Spring team has been one of the biggest contributors to the ecosystem of providing hints to other libraries out there.
Yes, that is a very good point. The Spring team made that part of the core API. In Spring Framework, the way that you can add these ahead of time capabilities is the same way that they're doing it. They have exposed the way that you can add these capabilities to your library. So you can do it the exact same way that the Spring team is doing it. And the entire Spring ecosystem that is delivered from the Spring team, the core Spring team, that is all compatible with the native images.
Yep. I see another comment here, friend of the show, Darcy. I never knew virtual threads would make a difference on microservices. That's so cool. And yeah, that's the big thing. It's not about how big the size of the application is, right? A microservice may be responsible for just one thing, but that one thing may take a large throughput and do a lot of blocking operations like talk to a database, talk to another service to get data. And so, so virtual threads are going to really help out in that situation. Cool. Thanks. That was my next question, Dan. Yeah, no problem at all. Cool. Just looking here. No. There was another one here. Spring Data HBase. I'm not sure what that is.
HBase is a platform built on top of I'm blanking. It's a distributed database, but it's built on top of.
I'm not sure what the question was, though. If you could be a little bit more.
It was just another comment. It's like, hey, what do you tell me something about Spring Data HBase? That is, I don't believe, a part of our library that we deliver. I know that there are Spring Data HBase things out there. Felipe?
Yeah, I think we have like the Spring on the Spring Data. We have all the Hadoop and all that kind of stuff. That's where HBase comes in place.
Gotcha.
The big data stuff. So I think we have that because on Spring XD, that was part of the configuration that we need to do. Yes, you can use whatever big data engine you want, either Spring Boot, regular Spring. My recommendation, if you are going into that thing, take a look into Spring Cloud Stream. I'm so advocate to that technology. I love that technology. So I know that it's based on a Spring integration. So cheers to Artem, Dylan, and Gary, Russell, and of course all the team that that is behind, like a Kafka and Spring Cloud Data Flow. All my friends on that particular team, Cornel, Elia, Glenn, of course. There, I forgot the names, but all my friends, Chris Bono, of course, there. Amazing. Savi Chaco, those guys. My respects to that team, because again, if you don't need to worry about how to connect to these particular engines, like even the database, you want only to have SQL, or maybe you want to send a message from one microservice to another,
Hmm.
Doesn't matter what kind of a technology you use, like a Rabbit, Kafka, PubSub, something from Microsoft, something from Amazon, or the Google PubSub thingy. You just plug in your binder, and practically you are okay. You don't need to worry about that
That's awesome.
communication. We take care of that, or we take. Guys created that, and they
Yeah,
take care of that, right? So
nice.
that's very cool stuff.
One of the feelings that I've been having lately is that there's kind of a shift uh, towards more of event driven and messaging driven
Yes.
architectures. And that was one of the first things that you said on today's show. And now I think that maybe that's bringing it to the top for me, that there is more of these. I think you're validating it. I think that that's definitely something that we're going to see more of out of the community, is more focus on data and how big the data conversation is to the architectures that we're allowed to deliver. If I don't have a messaging system like Rabbit or Kafka in the building, then that kind of limits the architectures that I can do. But there's options, and I think that what we're going to have to do as a community is show the value of these interesting architectures. And now that we've got massive results from the community, we're going to have to kind of leverage those and share some of those stories. So thank you for bringing that to the top
Yep.
of the
Yeah,
conversation. I think that's going to be a big part of what we do.
please take a look into Spring Cloud Stream and Spring Cloud Data Flow, because not only you can run your Java microservices, you can actually plug in the new stuff like a Spring AI there.
Yep.
And not only that, you can run Python scripts. You can do .NET. You can do whatever other technology you want. This is one of the cool things. So I think what we are missing there is just more PR on them, right? More public relations on that particular technology, because I've seen the other side. Practically on the .NET side, I've seen two big companies bringing and trying to do this kind of a transport analogy that doesn't matter. You just use these lines of code. You can use MSMQ, you can use Azure, you can use Rabbit, Kafka, but so far I haven't found anything like we have on the Spring Cloud Stream and the Spring Cloud Data Flow.
Cool. We're running up against it here, and I wanted to make sure we cover one more thing. I talked to you before the show. There's a follow-up in the works already for Pro Spring Boot 3, and I want to talk about that subject. You're already working on the next book. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is? Because that'll lead into a couple questions that I have. So.
Yes. So just to announce that, we are in the development of the Pro Spring Boot for using Kotlin.
Nice.
So that's the big news. Kotlin is getting bigger and getting more on the community. So now, we are working on that. Practically, they are helping me to bring all the Java goodies into Kotlin. And of course, I'm using most of the time, and I explain that why I'm using that. Like, for example, one of the libraries that I love to use is Lombok, right? Because it's so easy, not too much boilerplate on your Java stuff. But now with Kotlin, it gets even reduced more, right? Now you have the goodies of Kotlin and all that new way to do to do the null pointers and null values and all that kind of stuff. So that helps a lot. Plus, the way to do all the isolation when you're doing multi-threading applications, right? So that's something that we're working on. And yes, I'm gonna let you know when that happens. And maybe we can have a chat another time and explain. This is what we do, and this is maybe a comparison why we're doing this, right?
Yeah, that'd be great. Can we use it to learn both Spring Boot and Kotlin at the same time, or would you need to know Kotlin before the book comes out?
I think you can learn. I mean, if Java, learning Kotlin, it's a breeze, ready. I mean, it really is just to do a translation on that. And this is the thing. I always joke about it, that for example, my first language is Spanish. I'm from Mexico, so Spanish, then English, and now I can say that I know Go, Rust, Java, Kotlin. So I'm a multi-polyglot guy, right? Yeah, it's so easy, really. Try to know about Kotlin is so easy. So yes, I can say yes. If you want to learn a Spring Boot and you use the Kotlin part, I guarantee you that you are going to learn Kotlin as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Simon has a good comment here. I'd recommend checking out Kotlin in Action, the second edition. Yes, that is that's a book in my wish list that I'm going to pick up as soon as I start making that transition as well. So, got another comment here. How much of Kotlin is actually needed with Java 17 plus for backend development? I understand the value of it for DSL or Android, maybe a few other examples. Stardust, I had some of the same thoughts. If you go back, and we had a great conversation about Kotlin a few episodes back, if you want to check that out. And I kind of posed some of those same questions, like, with like coroutines, now we got, virtual threads and JDK 21. There are still some niceties. And I think one of the things that I learned is like, there isn't this one huge feature that something like Kotlin is going to give you that like, I absolutely have to drop Java and move to Kotlin, right? But there's a bunch of little things that start to add up that you really start to enjoy if you kind of like are writing something and then you use something like null pointers, or if you use coroutines, or if you use, all the different features that Kotlin has. I think they just really start to add up as nice to haves. You can get away with just Java, but there are a ton of nice to haves, and then there are some other really cool features in Kotlin, like multi-platform, that seem really cool to me. So that would be my answer. I don't know if Felipe, if you kind of agree with that, or what's your kind of take on that?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's so simple. At some point, you start getting all the new details, and then you start liking the way that you start expressing the language, right? All these new DSLs. Actually, I'm very big fan of Groovy.
Yes.
So Groovy, for me, for example, I was with this company in San Francisco that used to do solar panels. Then it was bought by Tesla. But these guys were doing RabbitMQ, and of course, they were trying to put Java there with the Spring. But then in order for them to create queues and create all these kind of infrastructure, they say, we want to use Java, but it seems so rough on this thing. Do you know any other language? Or we can do Perl. I remember that, or Python, but we don't want interpreters. And I say, no. Let me show you this. So when I show them actually just the script, like at the app.groovy, you do the add grab, you do the whole thing with just a Spring, just a few lines of code. Get in love with the Groovy language, and they told me, you just change all the Java thing. We are going to start doing Groovy. So they actually switch the entire Java ecosystem into, the language, not the JVM, of course, to Groovy. And based on that, I love all these programming languages. So I have somewhere like a small repo where I can have that I have all my Groovy stuff, my Java, and even Clojure. Doing a Spring Boot. So imagine creating just a small application with a few lines of code using Clojure. It's like, this is amazing. You can reuse all this. But I agree, Dan. There's something that you like with all these DSLs, an easier way to do stuff, and remove all the hassle probably, and a lot of lines of code that you can minimize maybe with just one versus 20 on Java, right? So
and I think the one question I get a lot too is like, what why should I learn another language? If my company's not like switching to another language, what are the benefits of learning another language? So, and there are a couple, right? This one is very closely aligned to something that you're already using. So it's pretty easy to move over to. Like you said, you can pick it up quickly. But it also gives you a little bit of thought into a language design on how they go about tackling certain problems.
Yes.
So there's this side of the coin, which is grab another language that might just make your day-to-day coding a much better experience. Then there's the other side of it, which is like try to pick a completely different language than the one you're using for a lot of the same reasons. Like you're going to learn how other languages kind of solve these problems. The problems across programming languages are ubiquitous, right? Like they're the same. Like we just all tackle them different. And obviously languages are inspired by other languages and everybody shares features, but I think it's good to learn something else. And if you want to like jump into something that's very near and dear to what you're doing in Java and that can translate, Kotlin probably be a great choice for that. So.
Yes.
All right.
Let me jump to Ahmed's question. Ahmed's like, hey, I'm using Spring Boot for blockchain. Ahmed, you're not the only one. And it's hard for us to figure out where you're going to find those performance improvements. But I can tell you this, if you're using the Hyperledger Fabric Spring Boot project that's out there from 2020, it's time to upgrade it. Plain and simple. You're not going to get the performance that you want if you're still using Java 8. Move it, upgrade it to Java 21 or better. Use those virtual threads. That is exactly the kind of use case that's going to give you the performance upgrade that you're looking for. And if you've got more questions, give me a call. You know how to get a hold of us.
Yeah, great. One more question here. What was the HTTP client you guys mentioned at the beginning? This was probably the HTTP interfaces Felipe was talking about. So you can write an interface. You don't have to write the implementation of talking to another service. And then at runtime, we'll kind of turn that into an implementation for you. So check out the Spring Docs HTTP interface clients. Cool. I think that's it. Felipe, this has been awesome.
Thank you so much.
I just want to remind everyone, we put out the link for the book. Go ahead and check that out. The discount code was 20% off Java Mastery, all one word, all capital letters. That'll get you 20% off of the book. Felipe, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to talk. Being a pro Spring Boot 3 coder, we've known you for a while. It's been a lot of fun catching up with you. Any last kind of comments, or where can the good folks out here find out more about you?
Yeah, you can probably you have the link on LinkedIn. Please, you can send me a message, and of course, happy to help. Actually, thanks to you guys, I started getting some messages on my inbox saying like, I need help. I'm a student on this university, and I want to learn this. I want to be prepared. What are the recommendations and the whole thing? So that's part of what I'm here, right, to help you guys to understand this part. Also, probably an announcement. I'm about also to release a part of the a YouTube channel with the same name, Pro Spring Boot. I'm going to talk about from the basic, intermediate, and advanced. And of course, for the advanced stuff, I'm going to need to get a hold of you guys because I'm going to need some help to develop some of these talks. And it will be amazing just to complement what you are doing. Again, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to promote the book and share my experiences. And please keep doing this amazing job. And I hope we can cross paths very soon.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yep. Thank you so much, Felipe. Again, that was awesome, and you are one of one, Felipe. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
Well. Thank you, guys.
All right. With that, we will see you in the next show. Thanks, everyone.
Fantastic.